it's such a pleasurable industry to be in.
True.
You know, like there are so many people that are bogged down in a job that I really do not enjoy. And I even remember my father saying, if you love 50% of your job, you're very lucky. I thought how unlucky my father was, because I thought 50% is not very good odds, is it? Because I reckon I love 95% of my job.
I've got your title.
Go for it.
Lucky.
I got your title.
Lucky in life.
It's taken from Oliver Twist, and it's
Please, sir, can I have some more?
Is that right? That's it.
Okay, if you were a spice, which one would you be, and how would you describe your personality as a seasoning?
A spice. Maybe star anise.
Oh, because you make onions taste more complex and umami.
It's like the flavour of
Or he's a little bit prickly.
He breaks up very easily.
Yeah.
What about you, Matt?
No, let's go with Gary. And I'm going to give you a chance to go.
Oh, maybe black pepper. I like black pepper.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little hidden strength in black pepper that you're not quite aware of until you use it generously.
They're all household names thanks to MasterChef Australia, but we all know them for the passion and love for food. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Gary Mehigan, Matt Preston, and George Calombaris for News 18 Showsha. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being on the show.
Pleasure. Nice to be here.
First of all, tell us about the 7-course meal that you're serving tonight and tomorrow.
George can answer that one. We're in our chef's jackets. We can kick off.
It's actually a really wonderful menu, because what's lovely is we've had Gary pretty much here for the last 2 years, in and out many times. So that is a big added advantage, because suddenly we're not having to reference, come here and go, let's stick a butter chicken in a vol au vent, but let's use the most incredible wild bee honey that Gary discovered, some amazing millets and grains, some, beautiful prawns that Matt's using one of his courses. But we've brought a couple of little things from Australia just to make sure that, we've got that little bit of Australianism there, everything from Vegemite to finger lime.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a tasty menu, and people aren't going to walk out hungry, that's for sure.
Wow, that's nice. It quite rarely happens when in India people try and Indianize the food a little more. It's never the natural flavor of a particular cuisine that you get to taste on a regular basis. Have you had to do that? Have you had to alter the kind of flavors that you had to?
The only thing we're conscious of is that the Indian palate needs complexity. So if you look at an Italian fish dish that's simple beyond often the Indian imagination, a simply cooked piece of fish with olive oil, maybe fennel. It's like, what? So, you always, for example, we were going to put a cauliflower puree on the lamb, and George and I, given the opportunity, it would be clean, white, taste of just cauliflower, no interference. Whereas for the Indian palate, it needs some caramelization. It needs depth of flavor. It needs, umami. So we caramelize it. We make sure that we drive a bit of flavor. It might not have a spice in it, but you're using other flavors just to make sure that they go, oh, wow, that's tasty. So, yeah. And I think the realization is when you come here enough and for example, you'll see a little kid walking down the street with a lime with chat spice on it and sucking on it. Then you go, you've got to be conscious that every single dish is flavor plus, whether it's Matt's carrot dish with cardamom, which is, it's got 7 different elements on it. Right. Whether it's a ravioli with a sweet and sour sauce, we make sure that the agrodolce with raisins and charred grapes is just like, boom, big flavors.
And I think that's the thing. And we've got probably between us 5,000 recipes. Because we've got, 7 cookbooks, 5 cookbooks, 8 cookbooks.
Matt's got 4,600 and we've got a couple of hundred each.
But also it's just a matter of going through them and going, what have either stuff that we've learned and then reinterpreted from our time in India back into an Australian idiom, and then we bring those flavors back. Like I do a caramelized carrot with cardamom, which is, you'll look and go, that's a bit like a carrot halwa.
True.
Or we're using tamarind in a dish, but with smoked chipotle.
Wow.
We're using, instead of using salt, we're not using ordinary salt, we're using Australian salt that's been smoked with red gum. So all the flavors are loud and they're bold. And so I think and they're joyous. And I think that's so far from the dinners we've done before, that's what people are related to. Because it's not quiet food. You don't go home hungry. But I think the other big difference is doing this is because we're working with the college team. Normally when you come in, like George would come in with one chef and we dropped into a hotel. And if the hotel likes George, they'll commit some resources to him. If they don't, then it's him and one other guy doing the dinner.
Correct.
The 3 of us We've each got one of our guys here, but also Konosh have pulled together a team of young Indian chefs to work on all the 6 dinners. So we've got this great brigade that travels with us, and that investment in the dinners means I think the food, certainly from
comes out in a better way.
I think we all know about some of those internationals that have come over here and people have been disappointed.
True.
Because it's a hard thing to do to transfer food.
Well, it's a hard thing to do,
location.
particularly say for a 3 Michelin star chef who
Yeah.
has to adapt into an Indian palette of flavour and ingredients. And it's a tough one to pick on. It's a Konosh crack team.
Yeah.
And you know why they did it? You two.
Because we're really difficult.
Yeah, that's what it is. Because they knew you would come. They were terrified. No.
But it's also one of the great joys. So the whole thing about MasterChef for us has been the development.
Right.
And the brilliant thing of watching, especially with these 2 guys are legends, they're legendary chefs, right?
True.
To watch a young Indian chef spend 6 days or 12 days
With them,
and 6 dinners with them on the pass and being asked to, okay, you plate that. Now you're doing the sauce. And that you get that moment and it's like,
True.
a little bit more, a little bit to the left. How about we do it like this? And you can see them learning, but then also you see them, they learn one thing, they pass it on to the rest of the team. So
That's true.
there's this wonderful sense of confidence that comes. And that's very
It's nice to
exciting.
know that the young guys that are working with us grew up with us.
Yeah.
Wow.
Makes us feel really old, but, it's lovely,
That's nice. What, according to you, with these many years, you've been judges, you've been in the industry for so long, what kind of philosophy or approach sets a particular chef, apart from the rest of them?
I think, there's many types of chefs. There's those that just want to go to work, feed people and go home, and that's fine. And there's those that are striving to be elite every day, to not accept that is perfect, because it never will be, and constantly pushing the envelope and questioning, asking why. And that's got to be within yourself. It's got to be, you've got to have that certain sense of drive, and you want to succeed and you want to be the best version of yourself. The most important thing is that you love what you do. I constantly say it, anyone that works around me, they're not working there because it's just the job. They're working because they're part of the team. I want them to get better, and I'm there to push them and drive them and make them better versions of themselves.
True. Gary, would you have to add anything to that, like, according to you?
Yeah, I think if you want to be good at anything, let's be honest, you want to be good at golf or riding a horse or being a chef, it's commitment beyond what most people are prepared to put in.
True.
I read a book many years ago called The Dip. And the dip's a classic example. The dip explains essentially that when you start something, it's fascinating, it's interesting. And then there's an uncomfortable period of learning and perfection that most people drop out.
True.
So, it really is. It's a long haul. I think that people always go, at what point did you become successful? Or, they're looking for the secret. There's no secret. You've just, like George said, if you love what you do, at some point in your career, you realize you're doing exactly what you want to do.
True.
You're going to work and you love it. And that, strangely, you've become better and better every day, so it's that, but if you look at the very best chefs in the world, there's a little X factor that they have.
That's true.
And I've always looked at George in the same way. There's a little X factor that makes them think about a dish differently.
I think also the other thing with the young chefs, it's the idea of 2 ears, 1 mouth. They listen more.
Right.
But it's also what I see in George and Gary is that they're still enthusiastic. We'll try something in the street. And it's like, how did they do that? What did they do that? How did that happen? Has this been fermented? What's in this? There's something funny. George, what do you reckon? That interest and hunger, that desire to learn more,
True.
and that
It happened last night at Bombay Canteen.
Yeah.
They did a nest of kataifi. Now I use a kataifi in a lot of my cooking,
Right.
wrapping prawns, making dessert. I've never seen this lovely little nest.
Wow.
So I demanded to go in the kitchen, and they showed me how they made it. Now
Wow.
that's just wonderful.
Yeah.
I love that.
So
I
because
love
of
that,
the
and I'm so glad that I still have that
Hunger in you.
hunger within myself to want to learn more and ask the question.
True.
And I think the day that I stop doing that is probably the day that I should just,
Well, we did it over lunch. We did it when we were at Swati Snacks. We had that batata, puri. And you can see George is looking at it a particular way and going, you know what, that dahi that fits perfectly into the kind of Greek,
True.
palette of flavors
True.
and crisp and crunch and sour, and what's you can see, what are you going to fill it with? What could you sprinkle over the top? And it makes perfect sense.
Nice. How do you basically adopt a traditional cooking technique and retain the cultural heritage of a particular dish, but yet modernize it? How do you balance that?
Well, that's the X factor. I think I love the fact now I'm 57 years old. I've had a long career. It's not over yet, but I see a young chef, like Eka Dining here in Mumbai, great restaurant, young team, brilliant chef, and you get a dish that's familiar. You may have eaten it 100 times, but it's just, she's popped it on a plate, made it look something completely different.
Wow.
Given it new life, taken it in a different direction. And I love the idea of sitting, and it's happened so many times, looking at a dish and going, oh, I would never have thought of that.
Yeah.
And that's youth in a sense. It's youth, it's creativity, it's enthusiasm, it's passion. And that's lovely to see. But at the same time, in saying that, I look at somebody I was showing George a video of a young man throwing a paratha in Tamil Nadu, in Madurai. And he's smiling at the camera as he's throwing it. And he throws this perfectly kind of tissue thin, paratha, folds it up, in 20 seconds, folds it up into a little pillow of air. It becomes a dish called bun paratha, and puts it on the tawa. And it's just like, wow. Like that level of skill and feel, I love that. And that's in complete opposition to being creative. It's
That's
just
true.
a perfection of it's almost like not an art in creative sense, but an art in physical sense.
Very true.
I think it also comes from an understanding and the idea that if you're going to play with the traditional dish, if it should come from your heritage. Because you have to understand the grandmother heritage of that.
True.
And so I think that's really important. If we went and reinterpreted butter chicken, we wouldn't do it from the market because I think it would be disrespectful to do. I think when you look at young chefs doing it, it's the Picasso model. Like Picasso can only do these paintings because he's an amazing figurative artist.
True.
So you need to know the building blocks. You need to understand what the dish is in order to reinvent it, which is where George comes from. He learned so much from his mother, but in terms of you want to go to one of George's restaurants, maybe less in the old days, it would be a long way for his mum's cooking. Maybe you're drifting back, you're getting older.
But when you guys all come to the table, you guys bring along your expertise as well. So like he rightly mentioned, you have that tradition, you have that cultural aspect that you bring to the table. How important is that to retain that? Even though you're evolving, or even though you're experiencing different cuisines, how important is that to
It's important to respect our past and respect heritage and culture at 100%. But we need all types. We need Manish at Indian accent to do crazy stuff with paneer that isn't typical to the street. We need that. Are you going to go and eat there every day? No. Are you going to go and eat there once every 6 months for a special occasion and be like asking the question why, or blue cheese inside? Is it?
None.
Wow.
Like yum, delicious. Is it traditional? No. But it's okay. It doesn't have to be. As most importantly, and the thing about using that as an example about dining there wasn't just about food.
It was an experience.
It was the entire package, the warmth of all of the people that worked there. The team were just so beautiful.
Yeah.
They had this
Perfect
sense of generosity and this spirit, and you felt good. It's about everything. It's not just about being creative and clever. And then we've had plenty of experiences in our lives together where we've gone to a place and it was creative and clever, but she's had no warmth, no soul.
Right.
No soul. But it is always going to be different, especially now, that post Noma Renazepi, One Riazak angle, which was the great restaurant is when you shut your eyes, you eat the dish, and you can only be in one place in the world. And I think this whole thing and what Gary's found doing, traveling around doing mega festivals and going to Nagaland and seeing how specific the dish is there, if you're from there, the reference you pick up from a dish that is inspired from that is very different to the experience we have. We'll go, oh, that's tasty.
Right.
But you'll go, oh, wow, they've recreated the smokiness by rather using coals, they've done something else. So I think that and if Noma's the same thing. I go there, we go there to Noma. We love it. It's super delicious. It's really clever. It's really interesting. It's intellectual, stimulating food.
Wow.
But when we get a porridge that's made with beer and bread, to them that's really important.
True.
To us, it's porridge and bread. But then it's the masala dose of their world.
Comfort food. Yeah.
Comfort
food.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just tagging on to that, I don't know who said it, but authenticity is overrated. I think there's a lot of opinions out there. I've met fierce traditionalists in every country around the world. You can't change it, you can't do this, you can't do that. There's a place for it. I love it, and I love traditional food. But you've also got to remember, and I've often been in a heated argument. I think Rocky Mohan, for example, is a fierce traditionalist, protector of every recipe. And I said to him, but they were innovative and new, whether it was 100 years ago, 200 years, or 500 years ago. And things that, certainly in India and everywhere in the world, I love the trail of food. You can see you can see the Mughal trail, the Persian trail, the Afghan trail, the Alexander the Great. You can see those influences, the modern influences, the tomato, the cauliflower,
the chili, possibly.
The chili that never existed in India. And, people say, oh, this is uniquely Indian. And I go, well, it is,
right
but
now.
It's not.
Right.
It wasn't.
It wasn't.
Sambar, rasam never had tomatoes in it. And cauliflower and potato, which are quintessentially probably the most used ingredients on a day-to-day basis, weren't
in it.
Indian.
True.
But I'm happy with that, but I'm also happy to debate it. I go, hey, let's take that butter chicken. I wonder what it's going to look like in 300 years' time.
Yeah.
So, it's and it's funny because you see a pastry and you go, God, that's so similar to a Greek pastry or a Turkish pastry or a Lebanese pastry or an Iranian or an Iraqi. You know what? I love it.
But they're also emblems of your culture.
True.
And so, I have the whole debate about where samosa's from, for example, and it's seen as being such an Indian thing. One of the Indian guys that's saying, no, it actually comes from the Somerset, it comes from the Middle East. Whereas there's a great theory, which the falafel,
right,
which, is, absolutely Lebanese Alexandria from there, is actually inspired by an Indian dish that the British Army loved, and when they went to Alexandria, they brought with them. So this whole idea, I love the openness of it. Rather than it being, let's not keep it here, but let's celebrate that it's everywhere.
Yeah.
That's
global.
So exciting.
That's global. Matt, tell us, and when you go to restaurants these days, or when you're sitting for a fine dine, it's all about, it's like you rightly said, it's not just about how the food is tasting. It's about the whole experience. How much of an importance is this being given, this aspect of the F&B industry that we're looking at?
It could spoil a meal if it's not right.
Yeah, I always say that an absence of negatives is more important than two massive positives. If you have bad service, the food can be amazing, the room can be great, but it's a bad night. If you have terrible food, you have great service, that may possibly actually save it, and a great room. But I think feeling welcome is really important. I think being looked after, being cosseted is really important. I think the food is important. I also think that we need to think of restaurants as being, it's like the clothes we wear. Sometimes we want to wear a really smart suit. Sometimes we want to wear jeans. Sometimes we're in shorts and thongs. So I don't buy into this idea that great food is just at the top end of town. It's in the homes.
True.
It's on the street. It's on the corners. And sometimes what you're talking about the bun paratha guy, like sometimes the great techniques that needs to stay on the street because that guy is probably
never translated into
30 generations.
Pretty good, but
and historically that used to be one of the problems. You take great street food, you do it not as well in a restaurant, in a fancy restaurant, charge 6 times as much, and you just sit there going, it's crazy.
Well, I've sat in a restaurant in Delhi, and the friend that I was with said, "Why did we come here?" I said, "Well, you left it up to me to choose, and this is the restaurant I wanted to come to." Modern, simple, versions of great home dishes.
Right.
And she said to me, "But my mum cooks this, and it's better." And I said, she said, "Why is it so busy?" I said, "Because it's the other bit. It's the other bit." And I used to go nuts. When I opened my first restaurant, just saying goodbye to everybody.
Right.
Like, there's a lovely saying in Danny Mayer's book, Setting the Table, which is some restaurants, there's an expression he uses, which is perfect delivery, imperfect experience.
Wow.
So that experience, if it's imperfect in any way, it can spoil it and it'll never come back. And I felt it. You may have felt it. You have a great night, you spend a fortune, you walk out the door and no one says bye. It's a really simple thing.
That's true.
No one says thank you.
That's very true.
You just walk out the door looking
Very
back,
true.
hoping that someone says, thanks for coming, looking forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or even better than that, thanks for coming, can I pop a booking in for next week or the week after?
Right.
That thing can send customers away in droves.
So there's also one really other important thing that we tend to always forget about when we talk about restaurants. The role of the restaurant is to enhance the enjoyment of your time with your friends at that table.
True.
And everything else is really relevant. There may be, I don't know, 20 restaurants in the world where it's like going to a temple. You know, you go and worship and you go, wow, they did this and that's crazy. And food nerds like us go there and enjoy it. But most of the time, you want to go, if you're the guys you play cricket with, you want to have a rambunctious experience. It's always about the people around the table. And the restaurant's job is to make your experience, whatever it may be, romantic day, whatever it is, to enhance that experience.
True.
Actually, some of the feedback I like is when you say to people, oh, you went to this restaurant, how was it? Oh, it was delicious. What did you eat? Oh, can't remember. That's a great restaurant, to be honest.
Or they do it the other day. We had a great time. You go, that's the dream. That's the dream, isn't it? For those of you, when you're running restaurants, the dream is people when they go out, they say, and then they maybe go, oh yeah, the flatbread and the dips were really amazing. You know, they might do something like that. But it's about that was brilliant because that's what you want, because that's when you're going to go back.
True. You know, with all your expertise, you know, sustainability has become a huge task right now when it comes to F&B as well. What, according to you, needs to change? You know, what, according to you, can be inclusive?
I think there needs to be. It's such a big subject. Based on the answers we just gave you on the last one, we could wrap it on for ages. I actually think I thought 20 years ago that we were really making some headway. I thought that in Australia, particularly, our move towards more sustainable practices, moving away from big ag. Big agriculture, focusing on things like free-range eggs and free-range chickens. I think we've got ahead of us is a huge shift in thinking. That's how I feel at the moment. And getting older and seeing us falling back into old habits and not paying attention.
Right.
We're an incredibly resilient race. Us humans, that's why we're so successful. We tend to forget very quickly. And for example, the resurgence in this, vegan meat and more manufactured product that we don't need, more packaging that we don't need, a hyper focus on not cleanliness, like packaging and gloves and what am I talking? When you sanitize and you clean and it's just, we seem to be going backwards in many ways.
In terms of hygiene, I mean,
everything we buy is you can walk into a supermarket and your spinach is in a plastic bag.
Right.
And the reason it's in a plastic bag is, number one, it travels well, it's preserved well. The bag's gas so that it doesn't damage. There's lots of reasons for it to be in a plastic bag. It also has a barcode on it so that when you get to the end of the supermarket, you can scan it yourself. And, I just despair when I see people buy most of their vegetables in plastic, bananas in plastic bag. I mean, what a ridiculousness. Banana's got its own wrapping.
True.
Seeing a coconut, or, when you come to India, for example, you can go, you'll be out in the country somewhere and you'll pass a coconut stall where a guy chops the top off with a machete and, sticks thank goodness, a bamboo or a cardboard straw in it. And then you go into a supermarket and there's a dehusked coconut wrapped in plastic with a barcode on it. It drives me mad. And it seems to be more prevalent now. And I think our task is enormous in the face of the fact that we all seem more concerned about global warming and where our food comes from. So I think there's a lot of work to do. Big subject.
Yeah. Do you want to? No. I think there are two parts to the question. The one part is up here, and then we can afford to talk about going free range, and we can talk about all those things. So that's one thing. And there's some important stuff there in terms of sustainability, in terms of what you eat, eating less. We have a lot of goat in Australia. We don't eat very much goat. That's wrong. We should eat less sheep, more goat. We should eat, more kangaroo because they double every 2 years. It's delicious. And we're now starting to move down that route. We have to convert a whole nation to eating that.
True.
It will still be replacing beef rather than replacing what everyone has to eat. And I think that whole issue about sustainability in terms of how we feed everyone, and we deal with issues of food insecurity, and we deal with issues of food inequality, we have to look at minimizing waste. We have to look at how we save food at source of production. And the other thing is we have to look at finding ways that we can feed people cheaply, rather than just going, it's, giving this top down. Ethically, you can't have that. Ethically, you can't do that. And don't have that because it's not sustainable. It's like, well, you've got to feed your family. And that, so we really have to take an approach from the bottom. And how do you make protein available to people, or veg available to people, at an increasingly cheaper rate and at a better rate?
Yeah. There's actually the argument, and I'm correcting myself here, but there's an argument against, I've got somebody who's a food importer, and there I am championing local. And he said, yeah, but Australia is an agricultural nation at heart. If you buy local, then you don't buy Chilean asparagus or, cherries from California. True. They're not buying our strawberries, chickpeas and rice.
True.
So it's a very complex system. And also big agriculture often is actually the key to drive change, because it has the ability, because of the power of big agriculture. The number one, it's fed millions of people over the last 50 years and saved millions of people from starvation. And yet, we look at it as the enemy. So this is what I'm talking about. There has to be some big changes. But I think really there's a big disparity in what I think we're hoping for and what people are prepared to do at this stage.
Right.
And as foodies, we'll just play a little part in trying to change our little part of the world and see how we go. But maybe if we all kind of come together and focus on it, then over the next 50 years, we'll see those changes.
That's nice. George, coming to you, what kind of an evolving state are we in right now? Where do you think is the F&B industry heading to, especially post-COVID?
Look, it was most definitely decimated, especially I can only talk for Melbourne where I live. We lost 30% of our workforce that were internationals, went back overseas. Another 30% went and learnt another craft because they needed to survive. They needed to pay for their mortgages and rents. And also, the lessons that you learn stopped. So the training of the young chefs stopped. And suddenly we were going into, all right, let's just fill food into containers and just try and sell it that way, and try and be as resourceful as possible. It's starting to come back again. It definitely is. The borders have opened again in Australia, so we're starting to see some really good internationals come because we need them. Yeah,
right.
We need them.
Right.
But more importantly, it takes us, meaning and I say that as an Aussie chef being in Australia, to inspire our young kids to want to get into cooking,
to
want to become the next great sommelier, to want to become the most amazing, pastry chef. And we've got to think harder. We've got to work harder. It's up to us. It's our responsibility.
True.
And that's everything. Our curriculum needs to be shaken up. It's a bit stale. It's a bit, it's just a bit boring at the minute. I feel it needs a bit of an injection. It needs to understand what's happening in what we're doing right now, So there's a whole mixture of stuff that needs to happen. For me personally, I control it from my only place, that I work in, and anything that I can do. I haven't judged an apprentice competition in years, and I got asked to, and I straight away went yes, because now I've got time in my life, and I should be going there, and I should be spending the day with these young apprentices to be able to, hopefully if I can give them one little thing they can take away from it, so they go away and it makes them, wake up in the morning the next day with energy to go and work hard, well then, and learn more, well then great, I've done my job.
That's nice.
Look at it.
So are we done with the major part of the interview? Now we have a few quick fire questions for you guys, and it's a common question for all three of you guys.
Good. We got a bit serious there, by the way, boys. Very serious.
That's good. That's good. This is serious. Yeah. I thought they're serious issues.
Yeah, they are big issues too.
They are very true. Okay, so if your kitchen were the superhero squad, okay, which ingredient would be the daring leader, and which would be the mischievous troublemaker? Gary, we'll start with you.
Oh, no, I've just gone absolutely blank. My goodness. I mean, the most commonly used ingredients, I think, in a busy kitchen has got to be a cooking oil, a medium, and a seasoning like a salt. So I think they probably use more butter, more oil, and more salt. Or is that just my cooking? Maybe.
What about you, George?
Olive oil and salt.
Yeah?
Yeah, I need them.
What was that?
Olive oil and salt.
Yeah.
Matt, what about
It's kind
you?
of the same, isn't it? You couldn't imagine an Indian kitchen without them either.
No, you've got to have acid for me. You've got to have acid and you've got to have salt, but maybe acid in the form of lemon and salt in the form of some form of cheese, whether it's feta or palm.
What do you buy more of in your kitchen? Like, what do you buy the most of? It'd be like onions, wouldn't it?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Basics, yeah.
Onions,
Onions, carrots,
Yeah.
celery, leeks.
Yeah.
You know.
And then your spice and your herbs and become your
Big bags of
They become
flour.
the kind of the la-di-da, don't they?
Yeah.
They become the,
Okay, so if your signature dish had a theme song, what tune would it play in while it's being cooked?
for me, it would have to be something noisy. It would be something like Thunderstruck by AC/DC.
Yeah, and I say the same thing. Beast of Burden by the Rolling Stones.
So what about you?
George Michael, Faith.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Boom.
So what's your go-to secret ingredient that can transform, even the most basic dish
I've got
into a
one.
culinary masterpiece?
You know what I'm going to say?
What are you going to say?
You know what I'm going to say? I've discovered about 2 years ago kasuri methi.
Wow.
It is absolutely amazing, and it for everything now. It goes in my chili con carne. It goes on my grilled meat, because we barbecue a lot in Australia.
Right.
It goes into my mashed potato.
Wow.
If I put the rice in the rice cooker, a handful goes into the water of the rice cooker along with some green cardamom.
Wow.
I love it. I spent a bit of time writing vegetarian vegan recipes for a book, and it's one of those ways you get that savoriness without having to use any animal products. It's an absolutely genius ingredient.
What about you?
I've got a bit of a sort of fetish when it comes to Japanese ingredients and things like loads of different soy sauces. And I could, I'll make a mushroom stock and I'll just put a couple of drops of light soy sauce in there, or, things like we're using at the Kanosh dinner tonight, sesame seeds that have been cooked in soy sauce as a little sort of, I like little things that are just going to give you a little uppercut in flavour.
Yeah, flavor bomb. Little flavor bomb.
But not like takeover.
Takeover, that's
I'm
true.
surprised you didn't say miso.
Oh, yeah, I do like miso. I go through my phases. At the moment, it's sort of Japanese vinegars.
My Japanese vinegars.
Just
Good Japanese vinegar.
I'm going to go far more simple. My granddad told me he was a chef, and he said years ago, lemon fixes everything. Yeah. Lemon zest, lemon juice. Like you put a little lemon zest in a cake or a little lemon zest on the top of even a braised meat dish, like a gremolata, and it kind of lifts everything.
Okay, if your life as a chef could be summarized in a cooking pun, what would the title of your autobiography be?
Pun.
Boom, boom, shake the room.
Oh, yeah. Ray will be happy for that one. Ray used to be my business partner. George worked for us for a long time. Ooh, that's a difficult one.
I suppose I've just written my memoir. Took 2 years to write. The title was the easiest thing I wrote. As a cook, as someone who's written recipes for 20 years, has eaten food, has talked about food, the title has to be Big Mouth.
Wow.
You've got me out on that one. I don't know. It could be like Life in the Fast Lane or Life Best Lived or...
Butter.
You know how I feel about it. It's hard to summarize it without thinking about it. But I think we live certainly as hospitalitarians or, and broadly in food, it's such a pleasurable industry to be in.
True.
There are so many people that are bogged down in a job that I really do not enjoy. And I even remember my father saying, if you love 50% of your job, you're very lucky. I thought how unlucky my father was, because I thought 50% is not very good odds, is it? Because I reckon I love 95% of my job.
I've got your title.
Go for it.
Lucky.
I got your title.
Lucky in life.
It's taken from Oliver Twist. And it's
please, sir, can I have some more?
Is that right? That's everything, because it celebrates the continued joy. You would think after
I'm going to do it.
All these
Please,
decades
sir,
of eating, he would be now going. The terrible thing. It's a famous story in Australia about a critic going to a restaurant and going, I've eaten everything on the menu. Just bring me an egg white omelette. It's terrible. But we're all the same. It's like, where can we eat? What can we do? It's the joy of discovery.
Wow.
The joy of chasing.
I'd be quite happy to read a book that you wrote.
No. That's yours. It's yours. You've got to go and do it right now.
Okay. So what's the most bizarre kitchen mashup you've had that ended up tasting surprisingly good?
Oh my goodness! You know what I remember is when we worked together. It's not a mashup of so much, but we used to make lots of buttery mashed potato in the restaurant that we had. And Emma Jeffrey, who used to work with us, I remember clear as day. When we used to bake the potatoes, press them through a sieve, make this beautiful, fine, silky mash with half butter. It's like dal makhni, it's just loaded with butter. And we used to throw all the skins away. And one day she took all those skins and she chucked them in the deep fryer and she fried them and she slathered them in hot chili sauce and sour cream and some chopped chives. And we all just, we were working hard and we would just smash them. It's just utter dude food, but it's so delicious. Like really good.
That's true.
I think some of the most simplest flavors are the things that you sort of ignore or you don't see. I love salt and vinegar chips. So I use a lot of vinegar powder in a lot of my cooking. I won't even talk about it. I just, deep fried zucchini chips that I serve with a, whipped white cod dip. We're called darama, but I'll season the zucchini chips in vinegar powder, and it's just adds this little, again, this
it throws your tongue into a different space, doesn't it? It throws your taste buds.
And it's also familiar.
Freshens.
And I'll get that customer going, what have you put on the zucchini? And I'll just go, guys, when you're at home, just put your salt and vinegar chips through a spice.
That's why I like that cheeky little dashi powder in fried rice.
No.
What about you, Matt?
I go with toast. An early feature I did for one of the magazines I worked for, Delicious, I did an 8-page feature on toast because toast is magical. And with toast, you can play with flavors in a way that maybe you can't do in a dish. So olive oil, salt, melted black, dark chocolate in toast is amazing. Apricot jam with Worcestershire sauce is amazing.
I've never done that.
Raspberry jam and Vegemite or Marmite is amazing because, again, it's salt and sweet and sour. So for me, they're the real surprises. Something that George used, honey and salt or honey and goat's cheese is again magnificent. So I think it's often surprising, but when you actually drill down, you go, it's salt. There's always sour, there's always sweet, and there's always salty, and it's those three together. That's kind of where happiness lies. If there's a bit of creamy in there as well and a bit of crunch, that's the punch flavors for us.
Wow. Okay, if you were a spice, which one would you be, and how would you describe your personality as a seasoning?
A spice. Maybe star anise.
Because you make onions taste more complex and umami.
It's like the flavour of
or he's a little bit prickly.
He breaks up very easily.
What about you, Matt?
No, let's go with Gary. And I'm going to give you a chance to go.
Oh, maybe black pepper. I like black pepper.
Yeah.
There's a little hidden strength in black pepper that you're not quite aware of until you use it generously.
Yeah, I know. Because the danger is here. You just say the spice you love. So if it was what I loved, it would be green cardamom. If for both,
I was going to say cinnamon, and I thought it's beguiling and enchanting. And I thought, no, not that.
No, it's going to be something. It's going to be something loud and something enthusiastic, and it's probably going to be chili. It's probably going to be chili. It's going to be fireworks because chili is also, it changes from the little scuds to the chilies cooked in buttermilk to the Kashmiri dried chili to fresh green chilies chopped up and thrown across everything. I just think that's probably where I'm going. Chili.
That's nice. On that note, thank you so much, gentlemen. It was
Pleasure.
lovely talking to you.
Thank you
so much.
Great
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.